A very good evening to everybody watching. Thank you for joining us on this edition, the first recorded edition of the agenda for the year 2026. We are happy to be bringing you back onto the platform and informing you, or actually treating you to good conversations that are relevant to nation building. My name is Toivo Jebela. Before I introduce my guest, I just want to our show wants to pay homage and condolences to the family of Ondangwa-based control prosecutor Justin Shweda, who passed away on Saturday morning after that heinous, cowardly attack on the 17th of October 2025. Namibian Sun, of course, was the first newspaper to break the news. And we were again the first to break the news of her passing. We do not thrive on being the first to break that kind of news. It is very sad news, but we pay our condolences to the family of Justin rather, and call on the authorities to really tackle this matter with the seriousness it deserves, because she was attacked in the course of her duties as a prosecutor trying to defend the public against criminal activities and syndicates in the country. Now, to the show, we are joined tonight by Matheus Isak Ndeyapunye. He is a national spokesperson of the National African Students Association, NASA. We called Matheus to studio to engage us about subsidized education, which continues to be a hot topic in the country as the nation comes to terms with a new adjusted way of doing things. Thank you very much, Mr. Ndeyapunye, for making time. Let's talk first about your general perception, your general take as an association, a student association, on the issue of subsidized education.
A very good morning to all the viewers out there, and good morning once again to my host, Mr. Toivo Jebela. Our perspective as the association is that if you go back in our history as an association and why we became an association is because to advocate for free and free and well-resourced education in Namibia. And so with this news now becoming a reality to us, it's quite still like some sort of hope on the showing up on the horizon, even though we still believe that this subsidized education is not really what we expected as in our years of advocacy for it being subsidized. And we must understand that this subsidized system is only catering for limited numbers of degrees and qualifications, of which we think it's not really up to our expectation. As let me say, for example, we have articulating students. You find some students, let me say, for example, with those that are doing law, you get to find that there is after completion of their degree, they cannot practice immediately with their qualification from the university. They have to go for another one-year course training with what they call the institution of judiciary, whatever their one is. So is now with that extra year, it's not included in the government subsidized funding. So that means we find struggling students now that are coming from underprivileged backgrounds. So who is going now to fund the extra year of their training for them to start practicing? So in the end, they had completed a degree, but they can use it. They cannot use it to practice in court.
So, as we stand now, I mean, what are your members saying? Who qualifies? I know that you touched on it a little bit there, but your members, because you have members who are at different universities and who are in different academic years, first year, second year, and whatnot. Do they all qualify? At least those that are at university, do they all qualify? Because I heard some people saying no, it's only applicable to some students, or in particular, especially at NAST, I'm told that if you're in the first year, you qualify, but if you're in the second year, it's a lot of things that I'm hearing. What are you hearing from your members?
Yeah, it is a lot of speculation surrounding the whole situation and how it's unfolding.
Yeah.
But we believe it's inclusive to all, except that the subsidized education now leaves out those students that did not make it. Let me say, for example, they failed certain modules, and so those ones are now excluded from the funding model. But now, if you look at it, it's going to affect these students very negatively, because sometimes circumstances make us fail. It's not that we do not put much into our studies, but for example, I was going through mental breakdown, and I had a problem at home. Now I cannot continue my studies anymore because now I have to pay. I have to pay for the course. I'm not part of the subsidized model. And if you look at it, last year, NSFAF was speaking of a model whereby they can make provision to fund repeating students, without now taking away some journeys of prospective students is cut short. Now, even if it's so exciting that registration is free now, and tuition fees are covered by the government, so what will happen in the event whereby you fail? Then immediately you fall out of the system. Now you go back home again. So we are still advocating for that to say in the phase 2, the second phase of the implementation of the whole funding model, at least if what the government can do is include the repeaters and those who are articulating.
Yeah. How often must government fund for people who have failed?
For instance, let me say we have what we call major modules, and when they will fail a major module, you repeat a whole year. Let me say maybe allow a student at least to repeat one failed year and see how they go on from there. Are they going to fail again, or if you give them a second chance, it's going to be a different story?
Where is the accountability on the part of the students? Because, of course, failure can happen. You spoke about people going through mental breakdowns. Maybe you just lost your parent, or your father, or your mother, and in that, just as you were about to start exams, and it affected you negatively, and I can understand that. But we have been to university ourselves, and we have seen during our time there people who simply didn't care. They were never in class. You see them smoking. You see them doing this and that. And somehow government might just say, oh, no, they are Namibians and therefore we must still pay for them. There ought to be personal responsibility there, accountability on their part.
Yes, that's right. But you see, Mr. Taivo, it's like this. So when you are a student, sometimes you face unprecedented hardships. So now you mentioned about accountability, right? So let me say, for example, a certain student suffered, let me say, like you lost a parent. Now accountability comes in, failure does not only happen in events whereby we have personal problems going on. Of course, personal problems will be there. But then with accountability from a student's side must also be somehow supported or backed by the system in which the student is studying. For instance, let me say, probably resources are not provided. The student does not have textbooks, does not have laptops, and how do you expect that student to perform well? So what I'm trying to say is that the system should also somehow strongly back the students, at least evaluate the circumstances under which the specific student failed. Did the student fail because they had a problem? Let me say they lost parents, or did the student fail because they are unable to have enough transport money to get to campus? Did the student fail because they do not possess study materials? So maybe just create that model whereby you evaluate those failing students and give them a second chance. You ought to interview them. You ought to understand the circumstances. Why are they failing?
Yeah. The problem with that, Isak, Matheus, is that in that pool of people who are repeating, there will be all sorts of circumstances that led to failure. Some failed due to genuine reasons that you mentioned. They didn't have transport money or whatever. But there are also those who didn't make it because they were just negligent. And for me as a taxpayer to be paying for the negligence of people who were just gallivanting around, and I must now pay for them again. This is not different. This has been the case even with those that are funded by NASFAF right now. If you fail, NASFAF doesn't pay for the year that you are repeating. So it's not entirely new. And it has just worked. What has been the effect of the NASFAF policy that they take a break when you fail?
So the policy of NASFAF holding back when you fail, somehow we can say it's, for me, I take it as a disciplinary action. So when you fail, you have to now pay for that failed year, and then you still have a second chance to apply again. But a majority of the students now that failed, you can see that most of them just went back. They gave up. They joined the streets and they become any sort of person in the society out there. So perhaps we can just, when you implement such, you make such decisions, the government should also be prepared. Economic-wise, you should evaluate your position as a country. Are you really able to keep up with what you are about to put on yourself, or it's just for the global image? Because now, if you look at it, repeaters going to be neglected. Majority of these students now, especially the first years, they are coming with hopes that, no, I'm going to be the first one from my family maybe to go to university. I'm the first from the community. But they do not understand that after failure, you have to fund for yourself and then maybe come back in the system later. Of which, when they find themselves in such situations, they'll still have to go back home in the community if they are unable to pay. And that's still going to cut a Namibian dream short.
We are told now that the subsidized model, one of the teething issues that people have raised so far is that because it takes care of your registration fee and your tuition, but it doesn't extend into what NASFAF does, which is also to give you extra cash for transport and whatnot. What is your take on that?
No.
Or is that actually correct, or there's another provision for?
No, that's not entirely correct what you just said, because the government covers the tuition fees and registration fees as subsidized by the government, but NSFAF still continues to give out non-tuition support to qualifying students as loans.
Let me stop you there, because not every beneficiary of the subsidized education is funded by, is contracted to NASFAF.
Yeah.
So what you are saying is that yes, government takes care of these two bills, but if you are with NASFAF, then NASFAF can also take care of your transport or whatever, that extra cash that you guys get. But unless you are telling me that everybody who's benefiting now from this new regime is also a member of NASFAF? Because if they are not, that benefit of NASFAF will not trickle down to those that are not funded by NASFAF directly.
Yeah, NASFAF system is that they have a household threshold of funding. So the household threshold of funding, which is now kept at 300, a combined household income of 300,000. So now everyone that is under the system and they want non-tuition support, it comes from the student side. It does not necessarily mean that if you are under the subsidized system, you can also automatically qualify for the loan. What if you do not want to take the loan? What if your family is able to support you on the non-tuition side of your university life? So it still remains that you apply for non-tuition fees from NSFAF if you are in that system and you qualify and you fall under the 300,000 household income threshold. So it remains like that.
Let me see if I understand you properly. You are Petrus from Mahangwena region.
Yeah.
You are coming to UNAM for the first time in Windhoek.
Yeah.
Let's take Windhoek because you could have gone to Ndeyapunye Pamba campus in Ngwediba, whatever, but let's give you an example of you coming to Windhoek. And you did not apply to NASFAF last year because it was already said that education for university will be free. That was the word used first.
Yeah.
But now, of course, we are saying it's subsidized.
Yeah.
But either way, you come under that pretext that under that understanding that you are coming to be funded by government. And as a result of that understanding, you then did not apply to NASFAF. Because even NASFAF's role has become blurry in this new scheme of things. Now, you come to NAST or UNAM, let's stick to UNAM. You go to UNAM, your registration is catered for by government. Your tuition for the year is catered for by government. At what point do you access funding for your transport in that scenario?
What NSFAF did is that last year there were no applications that took place from October to December as they usually do. As we are speaking now, they just opened their application. So even if you automatically qualify for the subsidized system, you do not just say, okay, I just go to UNAM and register since the registration is free. What they do is that they do a background check to check if students qualify for the subsidized system. They tell you qualify, but still you must come back and apply again.
What do you mean they'll check if I qualify? I thought the thing is free for all.
Yeah, it's free for all, but they have to do verification.
For what?
What if you come with me, you say, no, I've been in Namibia, but you are not a Namibian citizen, you do not possess Namibian documents.
Okay.
That makes you non-Namibian, you are not a citizen.
And
so they have
eligible.
You are not eligible for the system. So they have to check your eligibility. Yeah. They have to verify that, no, this is a Namibian student, and their qualification, maybe their results, they qualify under the new subsidized system. And after that, then the institution will allow you to register. But then you still have to fill in an application with NSFAF. Then they give you that offer letter for the subsidized system. Otherwise, if you just register and then you do not apply with NSFAF, then you are not going to be in the system. The institution just registered you because initially you qualify, but then you did not apply with NSFAF. So that's now when you have an option to say, as you are applying now for the subsidized education, you should clearly state in your application that you would also like to apply for non-tuition fees, or you are just fine like that, you just want your tuitions and registration to be covered.
Non-tuition fee, my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong again, my understanding is that non-tuition fee, that one is a loan still. You still have to pay it back.
Yeah.
It's the tuition fees and registration fees that NASFA previously paid that you no longer have to pay back, but if you access extra fees for transport or whatever else your other needs, that one you have to pay back. Is that true?
Yes, that non-tuition fees still remain a loan.
Okay.
Yeah, still remains a loan, and you are still expected to pay it back after completion of your studies. Still remains a loan, but the other part of tuition fees now, that's registration and the tuition fees of your modules, is you are not expected to pay it back as previously expected. You take a whole loan for the whole course, which is including tuition and registration plus non-tuition support.
I see. So if you are to make a proper distinction now between the previous regime, because in any case, in fact, let me ask you this: is it automatic that if you apply to NASFAF for that non-tuition funding, is it automatic that you are likely to get approval, or there could be rejections also?
You still have to go through the same process of verification again. They'll have to verify, is the information you gave them really true? Is your combined household income under the maximum threshold? That's 300,000 now. You still have to go through the same process as the old system. It's not a guarantee that you qualify. Sometimes, let me say, for example, you apply for non-tuition fees, but when they evaluated your application now, it turns out your combined parents' income is over 300,000. That automatically disqualifies you. So you are not going to get the non-tuition fees, but the tuition will still remain covered.
I see. We go for a break and return with Matheus Ndeyapunye. We continue the conversation here with the NASA national spokesperson, Matheus. Now, tell me I still want us to properly exhaust the issue of repeaters. How many times do you guys as an association think, even if government was flexible and say, look, we can look into that, you must be funded for repeating how many years? How many years are minimum that the government, because we've seen guys who are repeating for the third year, the guy is just failing. For a second year, the guy is just failing. So it's not automatic that if you failed last year, the following year you are definitely passing. So what is the maximum allowable funding of a repeater?
You see, institutions have set minimum time periods in which a certain qualification must be completed. So what if we say a certain student should be allowed to continue repeating maybe for as long as they don't exceed the total number of years expected for that qualification to be completed. So for example, if you look, let me give you an example of NAST. If you are doing a bachelor's degree, then that's a 3-year course. They can only provide you an extra year for you to complete a bachelor's degree. So what if you just, that makes it 1 year, right? So what if you are allowed to repeat that 1 year, and then after that, after your time lapses, you no longer qualify to be at least assisted when you fail, then you fall out of the system. Just consider that scenario. Let me say my course is 5 years, and I'm expected to complete that course within 5 years. And so if I fail now within those 5 years, what does the university give me? Do they give me another year to allow me at least to complete my course? Or what's really the circumstances surrounding if conditions attached to a failing student. There ought to be a time cap period. So why not just fund until then the time lapses, as to say the institutions say, no, you have been here for quite a long time now and you are expected to at least finish this qualification within 4 years, so your 4 years here are done. And then also you fall out of the system.
Yeah, that is a very complicated proposition as far as I'm concerned. So, because there are two ways to fail. There's a guy who failed some modules, but still qualifies to proceed to the next year.
Yeah.
And then there's a guy who failed the proper academic year and cannot proceed to the following year. And if you are supposed to be at UNAM for 4 years, and you fail one year, and you fail one of those 4 years, it means automatically you'll be there for 5 years.
For 5 years, yes.
If you never fail again. So whether NASFAF skips to pay this specific year that you failed, or they decide to fund you and not fund the extra year, what difference does it make? You still have to pay for that year.
You still have to pay for that year. No,
that is just postponing the problem.
No, you mentioned about there are two ways of failing, of which there's one of failing certain modules but not failing a whole year. So with the system, the old system, as long as your academic record indicates that past a certain year, and you are progressing to the next year, you do not fall out of the system of NSFAF despite you failing certain modules. And you come to find that students that are funded by NSFAF, when the money in the tuition fees comes in, it's paid, there's always that remaining balance that is remaining behind. And when you register automatically for the next year and you register for the failed modules, you still have that remaining balance on your account that stays there as the institution owes you, or you have a credit of how much on your student account, and that is now going to cover for the modules that you failed. So now in a case whereby you fail a year, you completely have to start over. Then just consider funding the 1 year at least, and say, or maybe just give conditions. A student is only going to be funded for failing 1 academic year. After that, then if you fail a second academic year, then you are not funded.
Tell me what your feeling as NASA is about, I am told again, because in fact the reason why I called you here is also to clarify things, because even us in journalism, this week I spoke to 2 universities, very high-ranking officials at UNAM and NAST, those 2 universities, and they were just giving me conflicting information, because I said, oh, things are still coming, we don't know yet, but this seems to be the thing. That's why we called you here, so that you can also share with us your understanding. So one of the issues that I was told by officials at NASFAF, because I also spoke to NASFAF, is that if you are a 3rd-year student, for example, and you've been funded for the first 2 years by NASFAF, your loan is converted into a grant from this year onwards, because it's free education now somehow, or subsidized. But for the first 2 years,
it remains a loan.
You must still pay back that money. What is your attitude as an association to that?
In that regard now, I think it's partially it's fair. But then now I would also have to say that is a bridging of contract. So if we are going to turn my 3rd year into a grant and then still carry on my debts from the first 2 years, then I can just also say, just leave my loan to continue.
Why?
So why should you take part of it and not just maybe give me grace of the whole thing? Since now you are putting me in the system, just give everything as a grant.
And me, who graduated many years ago, what must happen to me?
That one is, you can't dwell on the past. That happened.
But this is the past too.
That happened, but I am in the system. The system found me. The system caught me. Like I was not done with my studies. So that's why I'm saying, if you are going to take 1 year and give me a grant, then just take everything. Free me from everything. Otherwise, it's not going to be fair.
Yeah.
You give me part of, okay, now let me say I was a first year last year. Now I'm in my second year and I still have 3 years to go. You give me, let me say, a total of 120,000. That one is a loan, I owe it to you, and a remaining 300,000. Now that one is a grant. Just take everything. Carry over everything.
But you are undermining, Matheus, the importance, what difference that makes. If you were supposed to pay 100,000 back to NSFAF in the loan that you accumulated over 4 years, and government comes in now and says, look, now you don't have to pay 100,000 anymore. You'll only have to pay 50,000 for the first 2 years. The last 2 years, we are taking care of that. You want to say there's no difference between paying 100,000 and 50,000?
That one is, you have to say kudos for the government for doing that. But still, you are breaching my contract. So contracts, legally, you're not supposed to breach it.
So government must leave you to your own devices. They say, this guy is already funded by NSFAF. We might just let him. We're not interrupting him. We might just deal with NSFAF and pay back all the money that NSFAF is going to pay for him. Is that a better alternative?
I'm not saying the government should do that, but the system of saying the continuing students automatically will be transferred to the new funding model. And they do not need
from the date of the new system.
Yes, there's no need for them to sign a new contract. That how sure am I that really I'm going to be given a grant from there, while I still have a system, a contract existing within the system that I did not revoke, or I was not offered a new contract with new conditions? How sure are we? Or is it just a way of government to say, no, let's just please them here, let's just keep them low? What if that's not what is going to happen? Because I have a contract that is there, and we are told that continuing students, there is no need for them to apply for NSFAF, because automatically they will be transferred from the old funding model to the new funding model. How sure am I that I am really going to be transferred, or I still continue getting the loan and the debt still continues accumulating?
Yeah, maybe I'm not comprehending your argument properly. I find it a bit awkward, but because I'm saying that if you were a loan holder for NSFAF, and government along the way says, look, we are going to take you off that. We are going to convert from this stage onwards, we are going to convert whatever we are getting from NSFAF into a grant, meaning you're not paying it back again. And so that ought to be, and NSFAF says, look, because we don't do things retrospectively, just like the law works, when a new law comes into place today, you don't say, if you say rape is no longer a crime, it only applies from the day the law was enacted going forward. But those that committed rape before, it's a bad example, it's a funny example, but it's what comes to mind now. But those that committed crime in 2019, a similar crime, you don't say, oh, since there's a new law now, those of us who did this must also be freed. So it's the same logic here to say now, because you spoke about contract.
Yeah.
You say there's a contract there. The contract said you must pay back the money. And then in the middle of the running of your contract, a good savior came and said, look, now you are only indebted to us for the first 2 years of our funding to you, and therefore the remainder, there you are free. Are you saying that even the 2 years must be forgiven, or that they shouldn't intervene with a new scheme? You might just run with your loan instead of a grant in the middle of the game.
What I'm saying is that it's not really a new thing of institutions forgiving debts. We've seen some Western countries also forgiving debts of developing countries. So consider me as a developing country, and you are a developed country, maybe let me say is China. I owe you and I'm still in the process. Now that you come up with an initiative of saying, no, we are going to fund the remainder, why not just also maybe give me grace, forgive my debt from the previous year, or perhaps, okay, now if you cannot forgive, I'll be grateful that now you are going to take over from there, but still you can also just extend the courtesy of forgiving my debt from the previous years.
I understand. I understand your argument now. The issue that I have with that argument, though, Matheus, is that again we keep talking about responsibility, accountability, because government is also not just some charity that is just there. In fact, what government is trying to do here is to meet our parents and ourselves halfway. But it's not really government's responsibility. Just like in our households, government provides an environment to say, okay, your grandmother gets that grant, end of the month. Your orphan and vulnerable siblings at home or cousins also gets a portion of that. Government is not saying, oh, how much does your household need to survive? Oh, we need 10,000 a month. We are going to give you 10,000. They say, no, we give you 5,000. The other 5,000, you must find it yourself somewhere. Cultivate the land, raise chickens or whatever it's called, so that you make up for that gap. So now for you to say, no, government must fund me, must give me free money from 2026 onwards, but they must also come and go backwards and deal with my trail of debts. Where is your accountability? Where is your role as a citizen?
Now, Mr. Taibu, if you look at this free education concept, it's not a new thing, especially in Namibia. We have seen basic education being covered by the government.
Yes.
But it seems like parents are now crying more under the free basic education than they were crying when they used to pay.
Yes, that is true.
It's free education, somehow basic education, but still parents, you find parents spending.
The costs have been pushed to us as parents, yes.
You find parents spending over 3,000 just to get their kids go back to school. So how sure are we that it's really going to work? I mean, if you had the muscles to say, no, I'm going to make this, then show me that really the system can sustain this.
Yeah.
And how do you show me? At least just indicate by showing your muscles that the government is really prepared to carry this burden. And we also have the initiative of a debt reprieve with NSFAF. So find wherever you are getting the resources for the debt reprieve, and also just extend the courtesy to the continuing students that are in the system. It's not to be grateful from a point of the association. It's not to place an extra burden on the government, but it's just a suggestion. But otherwise, if it's not feasible, then students must just consider it, okay, it's fine now, I'm going to pay back the the loan of the first and second year, or the number of years I got as a loan from NSFAF, and then continue with the free education.
Yeah, I understand. So tell me now about your members and other non-members of NASA who completed, let's say they are graduating this year in April because they finished university after 4 years. Because there's also this huge debate whether loans that they accumulated from NASFAF during that period must be paid back at all. The president, late President Hage Geingob, said at one point that he doesn't fancy the fact that young people kick off their professional lives in debt already. Because what you want is to start on a clean slate. You get a job as a teacher. When you buy that car through the bank or that house through the bank, your debt starts from there. But for those that are graduating this year and they've been funded by NASFAF, and they are going for 3 years ahead or 2 without a job, they are already in debt by that stage. How must we juggle around that?
That is why I suggested that the government should forgive the debts accumulated within the first or second or whatever year the student was found by this subsidized system.
That's why I'm giving you a scenario now where you are not found in the system. You are graduating in April. So let's forget about, so you are not a beneficiary at all of the new subsidized system. But you are graduating this year. So you are the immediate recent graduate before the system kicked in. What must happen?
In that regard, in that case now, there's really nothing much that can happen. But then if you check the president, or perhaps let me say the press statement and the policy that was compiled by the task forces they were consulting, they say you have 30 years. Is it 30 years for these students to pay back their loans? So, but in history also you can tell that not everybody that graduate go back and pay the loan. So now that brings us back to the, is it really, perhaps I can say somehow the system is not really fully designed for it to be able to recover these loans. Because now if you are going to implement this whole new system of immediately after graduation, the students are listed, what will you do with those that graduated years back and until now they did not pay back the loans? So I don't just think, perhaps, let me just say, forgive the loans again. I'll continue saying that. Forgive the loans.
Okay, wonderful. I think in closing, Matheus, let's delve into some people have suggested that in order to make this new subsidized system work perfectly, it will not be perfect, but in a really good way, is to have done this in phases. For argument's sake, you know that our government doesn't have money, doesn't have a lot of money, so they could have said, look, we will do this in phases. This year, 2026, we start with first years, so that we really give all our attention to them and also use them as guinea pigs to test the grounds and perfect the system along the way. Next year, both first years and second years will be funded. And you perfect the system along the way until you fund everybody that is in the system. How do you think, but it's actually water under the bridge now because everybody's already being funded. Do you think that mixing everybody compromises the quality of this funding, or do you think it's working perfectly?
Given that they are now just funding primary qualifications, I think it's still working.
Yeah.
It's still working, because if you say now, if they had to say this year we fund first years only, and then next year we can consider second years. So if that's how you apply the system, you fund first years this year, next year you try to include a second year. Second years that are going to be in the system next year is still the same first years you funded last year. So I think it's good that they included everybody. It's primary qualification, as they say, but still we feel like the system is limiting potential minds now, and hopefully they say it's phase 1 of the implementation. Hopefully in the second phase they can also now consider maybe repeaters and articulating students and postgraduate students. We have some courses whereby you get your degree, but still it's under the what benchmark. You cannot really use it for a good job in the market. So you wanted masters. Like for example, let me say now, we have students that are doing level 7 and they want to articulate to level 8. And some of these students still, the model is not clear as to whether these students now are allowed to continue to level 8. As, let me say, I completed last year. Now this year I want to come back for my level 8. Yeah. Am I still part of the system, or somehow I'm now out because I attend my primary qualification first?
I understand. The final question, how is this subsidized model working with private institutions? You have members who are at your IUMs, at your triumphant colleges and Velvicia and whatnot. What messages are you getting from your members? Are they treated the same way as those at national universities, state universities, or are there gaps in terms of how people are treated?
Yes, good thing is, in our years of advocacy, we've been having campaigns of free and fair, well-resources, non-discriminative education for all Namibians. So that is what we see, that is what the system, the new funding model did. Also, students at private institutions, private accredited, let me get that clear, accredited institution fall under the model. They are also funded in the same way as of those at public institutions. Although initially the president's announcement was that fees have fallen in the public institutions, of which during now consultations, student unions and that was our own also said, no, we are not going to accept this tertiary free education if it's going only to include public institutions. Then what will happen to our brothers and sisters in private institutions who are also fully Namibians? So good thing is that they are also included, and it's a win for us.
Absolutely. My brother, thank you for making time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
We will be monitoring the situation closely, and we'll call you back here again to see if things are not going well, or they are going well actually, so that you can just also reinforce that message that things are going well. But thank you for coming by.
All right, thank you for having me, Mr. Wayo.
Wonderful. That is Matheus Ndeyapunye. He is the national spokesperson of NASA, the National African Student Association, speaking to us about free subsidized education at universities that has kicked in recently, just to gauge the views of the people who are directly affected by that scheme. Thank you for watching.